For decades, corporate security was a fortress. You built a firewall and stayed inside. But remote work and AI access have completely dissolved that perimeter. Data breaches are a persistent financial reality. In 2025, every compromised record costs an organization an average of $160 in direct and indirect expenses. This chart shows the rising costs of failures. The global average breach reaches $4.44 million, but healthcare peaks at $7.42 million. These costs accumulate because attackers remain hidden. On average, it takes 194 days to identify a breach has occurred. To defend against this, you have to recognize that your exposure lives across 3 distinct layers: your application code, your stored compliance data, and your human endpoints. This creates a difficult trade-off. Deep security controls create heavy operational friction, slowing your teams down. But underinvesting guarantees a high level of exposure. No single tool secures all 3 layers. Survival requires allocating your limited budget strictly to the layer where your organization carries its highest statistical risk. At the code layer, the goal is to shift security left, catching vulnerabilities before they are ever deployed. This is the role of static application security testing, or SAST. On one end of the market are heavy orchestration platforms, with Oaks Security and SonarQube representing this enterprise approach. This quadrant chart maps these tools based on integration effort against customization depth. Oaks and SonarQube sit in the top right corner. These platforms provide centralized visibility across complex CI/CD pipelines, monitoring third-party tools and scanning multiple languages simultaneously. However, these platforms require significant upfront configuration. Without manual tuning, they will block your development pipelines with false positives. If your priority is pure speed, lightweight, developer-first tools like Snyk and Aikido take a different approach. We map these agile tools in the bottom left quadrant. They require much less effort to integrate, though they offer less customization in return. These tools deliver security feedback in-line, directly on pull requests. This allows developers to fix issues on the fly and maintain high release velocity. The trade-off is a loss of deep, custom security rules. And because these are often cloud-based SaaS models, they are rarely an option for highly regulated on-premise environments. Ultimately, a SaaS tool succeeds only when its inherent friction level matches your engineering team's maturity and patience. Moving to the data layer, the focus shifts from software bugs to the liability of the information you store. In this layer, a breach triggers immediate regulatory penalties. This comparison matrix breaks down the landscape of compliance data, mapping out specific data types, governing regulations, and primary risk vectors. Protected health information, or PHI, is governed by HIPAA. Exposing these medical records results in the highest average fines in the industry. Securing PHI requires strict access controls. While necessary, these controls create operational bottlenecks that hinder medical analytics and internal data sharing. Payment card industry data governs cardholder information. This is strictly regulated by PCI DSS standards and is essential for maintaining e-commerce trust. The overhead required to secure PCI data is so high that many small businesses choose to avoid the liability entirely, offloading their processing to third-party vendors. Much of the friction in protecting digital data exists because our foundational identification systems were never designed for the internet. Look at the text on this vintage Social Security card. It explicitly states this number was for tax purposes, not for identification. Yet our digital systems treat it as a secure password. Data governance serves as your legal defense. Following a breach, the ability to prove you classified and restricted sensitive data is the only way to mitigate the severe regulatory fines that follow. The final security layer is the human endpoint. When a corporate database is leaked, the names and social security numbers inside become the raw materials for individual identity theft. Attackers use these stolen records for credential stuffing, testing passwords across thousands of sites, and generating millions of fraud reports every year. The Federal Trade Commission tracks the scale of this problem. Between 2019 and 2021, reports to their Consumer Sentinel network nearly doubled, reaching 5.7 million. To defend this layer, consumers and executives rely on premium identity theft protection services, such as Aura or LifeLock. This scorecard compares baseline credit monitoring against premium protection. Comprehensive defense requires dark web monitoring, white glove resolution agents, and at least $1 million in recovery insurance. These premium tiers cost upwards of $150 annually per person, and the entire model is reactive. These services are effective at covering out-of-pocket expenses and managing the administrative burden of reclamation, but they do not stop the initial corporate breach from occurring. Human identity is the one perimeter you cannot patch with code. Because personal data compromise is now common, reactive insurance is a logical mitigation strategy. This decision tree provides a blueprint for your 2025 security budget, mapping organizational risk profiles directly to their correct investments. First, look at software-first startups and agile development teams. If you are building proprietary software, you prioritize lightweight SaaS. The primary goal here is to prevent dangerous injection flaws from reaching your production environment, all without killing your team's rapid release speed. Second, mid-market healthcare, finance, and e-commerce entities. If you handle highly regulated data, you funnel your budget into data loss prevention. You must prove strict classification and control to survive regulatory scrutiny. Finally, solopreneurs, executives, and general consumers. For individuals, the priority is premium identity theft insurance. You cannot rely on corporate architectures to protect your personal exposure, so you must invest in your own defense. Frictionless security does not exist. Success comes from placing that friction where your unique risks are highest and managing the exposure everywhere else.